In this video, we're going to look at measuring length. So the directions are to measure the following lengths, and here I have a link to an online ruler. So this online ruler will adjust to your computer screen to give you actual lengths relative to your computer screen. But I just want to mention the best way for you to do these problems at home is if you don't have a lot of practice measuring. If you have a measuring tape around the house, you should physically measure this on the paper. And just note that your answers may be a little bit different from mine because I'm using a computer screen and the relative size of my units, so here I have this represents 1 centimeter, may be a little bit different based on the size of my screen compared to your paper and to your ruler at home. But we're going to use the same idea for measurement that we would either way. So that being said, we're going to measure the length of the line segment AB using centimeters as a unit of comparison. So I'm letting this distance right here represent 1 centimeter. Now I've made my own ruler, a little piece of paper that I'm going to use to cut off segments of 1 centimeter. So starting at A, this is where 1 centimeter ends based on my ruler. You should make your own, or if you have one, even better. There's 2. This is 3 centimeters. This is 4 centimeters. And I have a little bit more, so for me this is 5 centimeters. And notice that B is about halfway between 4 and 5 centimeters. So I'm going to approximate this length to be 4.5 or 4.5 centimeters. And again, if you measured this at home and got a slightly different answer, that doesn't mean that your answer is wrong. As long as you start at the initial value and you make sure to line up your measuring tool at each tick mark, then you should have the correct answer. And let's look at the next one. Measure the length L of the base of the box using inches as a unit of comparison. So here's our box, which is a 3-dimensional object, but 3-dimensional objects have 1-dimensional measures as well, and this is an example. We're measuring this length, which is the length of this arrow. Okay. Notice I have this length marked as 1 inch, so this is going to be my measuring tool for measuring L. So I'm going to line up my measuring tool starting here. So I want to measure the distance from here to here, and I want to see how many copies of this length, which is 1 inch, maps on to this line segment. So lining up my measuring tool, this would be 1 inch. This is 2 inches. This is 3 inches. This is 4 inches. And I'm going to mark 5 inches too, just because I want to estimate. So we have this distance and this distance. So this is 4 inches and this is 5 inches. So I have a little bit more than 4 inches. Okay, and if my ruler was more precise, which yours might be at home, it could have 1/4 inches and 1/8 inches. You can make a better estimate. I am going to cut this in half. This would be 4.5. If I cut the halves in half, this would be about 4 1/4. So I'm going to estimate that this box is 4 1/8 inch. Okay. And again, I'm using cutting and fractional pieces, okay, to estimate this value. Okay. Let's look at the next question. Determine what units would be appropriate to use to measure the following lengths. Okay, so we're going to look at 1-dimensional lengths, and we're going to pick U.S. customary units and metric units. Now, it says which would be appropriate, so let's think about what that means. If you were going to measure your height is a length, it's a 1-dimensional measure, and you could measure it in miles, but it probably wouldn't be very useful. So you're some fraction of a mile tall. okay, probably about 1/1000th of a mile. Or you could measure your height in millimeters, okay? But you'd be a lot of millimeters tall, thousands and thousands of millimeters. So when we talk about what would be appropriate to use, typically we want our answers to be usually greater than 1, okay? And not incredibly large. And I know that's not a very solid description, so what's incredibly large? What's incredibly small? But we want to use these types of benchmarks for smallness and largeness. And we're going to look at these examples, and we have some benchmarks here, but I highly suggest that you Google online different US lengths and metric lengths so you can find values that make sense to you. Or, even better yet, take a ruler and measure some things around your house to find some comparisons. Okay. So here's a good comparison for a millimeter. So these are metric units, which we're probably less familiar with. A millimeter is about the size of the width of a dime. Okay. A centimeter is about the width of a small fingernail. Okay. And I actually use my thumbnail has a width of about 1 centimeter, so I use that to approximate centimeters whenever the opportunity arises. Notice there are approximately 2.5 centimeters in an inch. A meter is about a yard, so a yard is 3 feet. A meter is a little bit bigger. And a kilometer is about 0.6 miles, so a little bit more than half a mile. Okay, so these benchmarks will help you realize or get a good idea of what you want to use as your unit of measure. Okay, so the distance from home to campus. Well, you could live a couple feet from campus, but I think it's more likely that you live, in terms of US units, you probably live miles from campus. Okay, to think about the appropriate metric unit, we want something that's not the same exact value as miles, but that's about as large. Okay, definitely not millimeters, but we have a relationship here that says a kilometer is 6/10 of a mile, so that seems like a good metric unit to use. Okay. Next we have the height of a water bottle. Okay, well, in US customary units, I hope you're familiar with these. If not, you should Google them as well. Okay, we might think of feet or inches. A water bottle is probably a little bit less than a foot. Okay, so think about a 1-foot ruler. So I'd probably go with inches, because again, this idea that we don't want to have a fraction of a unit. Instead, it's better to think of if a height of a water bottle was 10.5 inches, that would be better than 10.5/12ths of a foot. Okay, so for the height of a water bottle, I'm going to go with inches. Okay, and looking at these metric measurements, okay, a meter is about a yard, so that's 3 feet, so I think that's too large to compare to a water bottle. Again, we could absolutely make this comparison, but we'd have some fractional small number. So instead, I think a good metric unit would be centimeters. So we can choose between centimeters and millimeters. Reserve millimeters for things that are really small, so the width of a dime. A centimeter is usually a good approximation, or it's pretty close to an inch. Next we have the length of an ant. Okay, and notice the smallest unit of measure that we have for the US system that we're using, that's in your chart, is inches. So for the length of an ant, we're going to go with inches, and it's going to be less than 1 inch, but it's still the value we're going to use because we don't use anything smaller. In the metric system, I think this is a good opportunity to use millimeters. Okay, so an ant may be about a small fingernail, but it's probably a little bit smaller than that. So there are 10 millimeters in a centimeter, so maybe it's 7 or 8 millimeters. I'm not sure. I haven't measured any ants lately, but the smallness of it is what makes you want to gear towards the millimeters.